all my Sagittarius friends. Welcome to my channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your October 2024 monthly horoscope. This horoscope is based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I'm talking about Sagittarius, I'm referring to Sagittarius rising as the first house and dictating the landscape of the chart. This is also applicable to Sagittarius Sun, Sagittarius Moon, and if you have 3 or more personal planets in the sign of Sagittarius, this video is for you as well. When I refer to a day and a time, it's based on the Pacific time zone, so please adjust for your location. October is really ramping up. The United States is headed towards a presidential election. Mars is transiting through Cancer, and it's been a very passionate time. And October is no different. We're going to see a solar eclipse in Libra on the 2nd. We will see Jupiter go retrograde in Gemini on the 9th. And when we will see Pluto go direct in Capricorn on the 11th. So the energies are shifting and there is a lot up for renewal. So let's look at the chart and see how this affects you directly. Okay. All right. So the month starts off with Mercury and the Sun and the South Node conjunct in your 11th house of hopes and dreams, of your social groups, your friendships. We see that the South Node has been going through this house for a little over a year now. It will transit into your 10th house next year. But right now, what we're seeing is that the South Node is approaching a spot called the supergalactic center, which is at 2 degrees of Libra. And I bring this up because I think it's fairly significant that as we're heading into an eclipse and the South Node is within orb of this supergalactic center, we are very much being tasked to be egoless to some of our relationships, in the sense of being egoless to their opinions of us, to us asserting ourselves, wanting our hopes and our dreams, and sort of having to assess whether we're putting someone else in front of us or we're putting ourselves as a priority. I think that's a challenge for some signs, and Libra is one of those signs because they're very partnership oriented. So as we're moving into this eclipse, the South Node is really asking Sagittarius to look at that Libra energy of partnership and say, how am I co-creating? How am I looking at myself as source energy, the ability to attract the things that I want, the people, the dynamics, and the situations, and then sort of having to assess it from a more elevated place, giving you more sight versus just walking on the human earth. I hope that makes sense for you, because the next day on the 2nd at 11:49 a.m., we're going to have this last eclipse. Eclipses draw in fated events, people, and dynamics that give us opportunities to make choices. They have a span of about 6 months where they can reveal themselves. So the seeds that are planted during this darkest phase of the moon, the new moon, are planted in faith. And here, this is again in your house of hopes and dreams. And so taking some time, Sagittarius, to really delineate what you want and what you want to experience, and then what you think you can create, and where you might be clipping your desires and your wants. The idea that the eclipse is at 10 degrees hits me very strongly because I very much connect with numbers. And when I look at this chart right now, I not only see Mercury at 11 degrees and the eclipse at 10 degrees, I see Venus at 11 degrees, echoing that series of ones that my thoughts are manifesting very quickly. I also see that Pluto and Neptune are both at degrees that reduce down to a 1. So this is playing in my head as an intuitive that this eclipse is about planting the seeds for new thoughts that serve my hopes and my dreams versus me trying to figure out how I'm going to do it and then walk an earthly path. It feels very much as about connecting with my heavenly hosts and my heavenly team about my wants and desires as I move forward. We see a square here between Mars and this eclipse. It is a bit of a challenge because Mars is not very happy in the sign of Cancer. It feels Mars is naturally wanting to move forward. It's not necessarily considered soft and fuzzy. Mars's emotions seem to come out in passion, lust, anger, more spiky emotions. So here Mars has had to slow down, had to really transform and think about other people's feelings in order to gain their support or gain their alignment, their allegiance. And it's been a little bit challenging because, again, Mars is in a process here. It's not actually the manifestation yet. We are planting the seeds. So the square could very much be about what we think we can create. Where will the money come from? Well, where will the people come from? And it isn't about trying to figure that out right now. It's about strictly going into the desire, planting that desire in through whatever type of ritual or type of ceremony you like to do. Oftentimes with a new moon, people light a candle, set an intention. And I would suggest in your setting of an intention also to identify how it will feel when you achieve your goal. I'll feel exhilarated. I'll feel excited. I'll feel inspired. Those kind of ideas. Now we move on to the 9th, where we will see that Jupiter is gone retrograde in your 7th house of partnerships. This is an interesting dynamic because a lot of the planets are in challenging energies. We just talked about Mars being in fall in Cancer. We have Venus in your 12th house in detriment. We have the Sun in your 11th house in detriment. We have Jupiter in your 7th house in detriment. These speak to me of where the planets are being tasked to slow down, to really examine the landscape of the various houses and to extract the information. It's almost as if in their compromise, the planets are having to find a new way to operate. And here, as a result of our eclipse, it's a new way of thinking. So we see that Jupiter is going to retrograde until February 4th, 2025, and it will retrograde back to 11 degrees. There's my ones again. I'm like, okay, so we're revisiting our everyday thoughts. We're revisiting how we interact with the media, with the information that comes with us. We can also see potentially interacting with our siblings. Again, the 7th house, committed relationships, both professional and personal. And we see a sense of peace and harmony and fairness and balance. And this review that Jupiter will do is giving you an opportunity to broaden your ideologies and your principles and potentially even your philosophies about how you interact with others, or even about how you create peace for yourself. We see on the 11th that Pluto will go direct. I'm actually going to move to the 12th because it's later in the day. So we see here that Pluto has moved direct. And of course, my eye keens right in on the 29 degrees, 38 minutes. Both these two numbers reduced down to an 11. So again, I'm getting this feeling I'm breaking up old thoughts about my skills, about the money I make, about one of the challenging things about the Capricorn energy is if you don't build in the material world, it doesn't seem to count. The Capricorn, all the earth signs, but especially Capricorn, does not like conceptual things. It wants to see something that's brick and mortar, hardwired, and something that will last. So here, I really believe that Pluto is offering you an opportunity to dig deep into your skills, into your voice and how you voice your fears, your trepidations, the type of authorities that you inadvertently, psychologically might imprint upon yourself. And as it moves into your third house in November for 20 years, you're going to enjoy a whole renovation of communication and could very much feel a sense of your individuality, your uniqueness broadening, coming up from places you didn't even know existed initially. On the 13th, we will see Mercury move into Scorpio. And I'm actually going to move to the 14th, where we see Mercury approaching a point in the Shapley cluster called the Shapley attractor. And Mercury is here tasked with the tasked with looking deep within its mind as to where there are false attachments, where there is a disempowerment of some kind, where I'm giving up my power. And it would be focused in on my speech, my mind, who the people I interact with on a daily basis, potentially even siblings or cousins. And we're seeing this point gets hit every year about this time, and Venus has already been over this point in late September. Now Mercury is sort of echoing again on the idea of the eclipse and being more aware of my thoughts and the habit of my thoughts. And in no short order, we'll see the sun move in that direction as well in about a week or so. So this is pretty significant. We see on the 17th at 4:26 a.m., we have a full moon in Aries. Now, this is very interesting because the moon is actually on the sun, is actually on the fixed star Spica. And that is where we experience the voice of the angels. And the moon is reflecting the sun's energy right now, reflecting the voice of the angels, which gives us an opportunity to feel a sense of transformation of my wound. The gift of Chiron is the wisdom and the knowledge and the healing of an understanding of the ebb and the flow of life. So here we're looking at this, this full moon is in your fifth house of romance, self-expression, your personal pleasure and enjoyment, fun, and the conception of children. And if for some reason, Sagittarius, you have been having challenges conceiving a child, it could very well be because the child wants to be born when the transits have moved on. It'll be very fortuitous when Jupiter moves into Cancer, because Jupiter will go from detriment into exaltation. And then we'll definitely, if anybody gets pregnant now, Pluto will be in Aquarius by the time their baby is born. So there's a lot of things that we co-create with the soul of our children. All right, let's go now. Oh, and I wanted to point out the Jupiter is making a beautiful aspect here to the sun and to the moon. So this is really offering expansion. Libra, again, is your 11th house of, the collective consciousness, a big picture of things in many ways. And then the moon is here in the house of self, but it's your house of personal pleasure and fun and enjoyment. And again, the conception of children. And we do see early childhood depicted in the Gemini energy. So you could very well find that the timing is right for this very thing, to expand your family, to expand your sense of fun. And it could very well be because you're expanding your belief system as well. Okay. I'm going to move on to Venus later in the day. We see her at the very last degree of Scorpio, but by the end of the day, she has moved into Sagittarius. And she really is enjoying this shift. She likes the diversity of Sagittarius. She likes the big ideas. And here she's going to start to come into conjunction with some very important points in your first house. At 14 degrees of Sagittarius, we see the great attractor. And at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, we see the galactic center. Venus here gets to have an opportunity as she transits this house once a year, about once a year, to take advantage of these points, to focus in on what she wants to create, the kind of money she wants to create, the kind of business she wants to create, and then starting to put those things into her communications, her thoughts, her meaning the things you speak every day. Before I was working for myself, when I would take a shower and get ready for work, I used to always say this mantra: I am a harmoniously wealthy, financially free, spiritual healer and teacher, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think this would be something important to start to put into play, this sort of affirmation of where you are going in the present versus a wanting dynamic. We're going to see on the 22nd that the sun will move into Scorpio, and it will start its conjunction with the Shapley attractor, again, releasing any false attachments to my ego, my sense of drive and ambition that others may not approve of. Now, when we look at this chart, we see that there's an opposition starting pretty strongly between Pluto and Mars, and this will grow as the month goes on and ends, and then it will get even more tight in November as we head towards the election. It's very, it's a push-pull of power and control. It is we see this is your second house, Sagittarius, but it also is the house that rules government and authority. And here, this is your house of Cancer is your house of transformation. So you could very well find that the push-pull is that you're willing to assert yourself beyond what other people have previously experienced from you. You may have had it up to here now, and you're putting your own agenda, your own wants and desires on the table ahead of potentially others. There's that possibility. Let's go to the 25th. And we're going to see Venus in a conversation with Saturn. And this conversation is growing as well. It's a square right now. So here's Venus in your first house, making a square to the Pisces energy of your fourth house of home. This could be where some obligations, the dynamics of your family life may thwart on some level your self-assertion. We see the square and a half to Mars, but at the same time, I'm feeling very much as if the Venus and Saturn square is very much about taking time again every day to connect with your heavenly team, to set your intentions, to ask for guidance. As Venus approaches that 14 degrees of Sagittarius, she goes into the great attractor. She's already within orb here. And this putting in this daily thought of receiving, inviting in, and being mindful of my verbiage, where my verbiage could potentially block me. The ideas of I want. Want is the universe hears as a longing. I am is something that happens in your physical experience now. So that's something to be mindful of. And I also think that the North Node is supporting this dynamic, meaning the North Node is supporting you to feel this sense of individuality and personal expression. Again, Aries is your fifth house of fun and romance and the conception of children. Now I'm just going to go to the 30th, and this is interesting for me because I really see this end of the month as sort of an interesting, almost a little bit of I hate to say reprieve. For the most part, we've got some nice aspects. We do have a little bit of a square between the moon and Pluto and Mars. This opposition has grown. I think this has a lot to do with the presidential election. It's pending. It's just a few days away. So we're going to see a strong sense of patriotism within most of our Cancer energy here in the United States. The United States happens to be Sagittarius rising as you are. So here that again is that eighth house of transformation, being aware of power and control through money, through, I mean, we see banking systems in this dynamic. We see, you know, up in that 8th house. So you could feel that. But other than that, I feel like the end of the month is kind of a little bit, gives me a little room to breathe. All the planets have spread out a little bit. They're not clustered so much together. And that gives me the feeling that I too have a bit of a moment to breathe before the next round of new thoughts comes in, because it will, meaning that there will be things that transpire outside of us as a result of Pluto and Mars that will affect us, both, you know, on an interior level, meaning emotionally, as well as within our environments. We see now Venus is, she's gone over the attractor now. And while she's in an opposition or a growing opposition to Jupiter, I think this is really where Jupiter gets to be a little bit more mindful about some of the details. This could get I think this opposition can get a little bit lofty, where I put it in Spirit's hands, but then I get to remember that Spirit's hands are the ones that will inspire me into action and not drop a bag of money on my head or the, you know, whatever opportunity I'm looking for. So overall, for the month of October, there is a feeling of the winds of change coming. There's a feeling that we become more aware that our thoughts are contributing to our experience. And I think we become a little bit more aware of how we want to interact with the media. I do think Jupiter's retrograde in Gemini is really sort of illuminating bigger philosophical thoughts that we want to experience versus the kind of information that is being fed to us. And that review will go on again until February. So I think it's going to, Jupiter also rules the judicial system. So having this in your 7th house, which is a house that's riddled with diplomacy, it's where lawyers live, it's where our police live, is the 7th house. And so we could see, you know, a bit of disruption over philosophical ideas, over, you know, things that we could find, we could see more legal things and authorities in our government with the legal system involved. I don't really want to get political here, but we know that both Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump have both faced charges as a result of the environment right now. So we could see more of that kind of stuff in the media as we are approaching the election on the 5th of November. All right, that's it for my Sagittariuses for October 2024. I hope you have a wonderful month. There's always, you know, challenges and there's always benefits. So when I walk through a challenge, I like to consider it a divine disruption. And if you find yourself in that place, it's just giving you an opportunity to hone the skills of your mind and your voice in alignment with what you want to experience and what you desire. I will be back in November. So please like, please subscribe, please share, and have a great October. See you soon, Sagittarius.